There are two ways to deploy a policy within Policy Commander. The first method is to use drag and drop. So by selecting the All Policies tab, I can get a complete list of the policies that are available for deployment. Click on the policy you wish to deploy, then drag them over the location where you wish to deploy the policy. I can deploy the policy to the domain, subdomain, organizational unit, or even an individual computer. The second method is to right-click on where you wish to deploy the policy, and then select on Assign Policy. Select the desired policy, and click on Finish. Click on the Policy Compliance tab, and then Manage Computers to see all of the computers in your domain and their current compliance status. As you can see, the 3 computers in my domain are non-compliant with the Disable the Automatic Update service. For a summary of your compliance status, click on the Compliance Summary tab. A computer or policy can belong to one of 6 conditions. Let me go through the list and explain what they are from bottom to top. Non-applicable. This means there is a configuration setting inside the policy that does not apply to the computer. An example would be of a policy designed for a workstation and that policy being deployed to a server. Pending. This means that a policy is in the process of being applied to a computer or a group of computers. Error. This generally means that the policy file contains a configuration error and could not be applied to the computer. Enforced. This means that the computer was once non-compliant and a policy has been enforced on the computer. The enforcement could have happened either manually or automatically. Non-compliant. A policy has been assigned to a computer, but it does not meet the conditions of the security policy, therefore making it non-compliant. Compliant. The computer is now in a compliant state with the enforced policy. In order for a policy or computer to become compliant, it must be manually acknowledged by the Policy Commander administrator. If I want to enforce the policy on just one computer, all I need do is right-click and then select Enforce Policy. When the wizard starts, click Yes to enforce the policy. Now when I press F5 to refresh the console, you can see by the pie chart that the policy has been enforced on the 2003 VM server. Obviously, I'd rather have the security policies automatically enforcing compliance for all computers. I do this by selecting the policy and with the right click, select Policy Properties. Then all that's required is to check the Automatically Enforce tick box. In addition, if I want to send email notification when a policy goes out of compliance, then I just have to check the Notify via email tick box. Now the next time the 2 non-compliant computers poll with the Policy Commander channel server, the Disable Automatic Update Service policy will be automatically applied and enforced. For the computers to become compliant, as the administrator, I must acknowledge the enforcement step. I can do this by right-clicking on a computer or groups of computers and select Acknowledge Enforcement. I can also acknowledge enforcement on a policy as well as the computers. With the Disable Automatic Update Service policy being configured to automatically enforce, I will attempt to break the policy and take the VMXP2 computer out of a compliant state. The user that's logged into the VMXP2 computer is a domain user with local admin rights to the workstation. This will allow me to enable and restart the automatic update service. With the service restarted, let's go and have a look at the Policy Commander console. When I refresh the console using F5, you can see that the policy has been automatically enforced. If the policy had not been modified to automatically enforce, the computer state would be non-compliant. And now if I go back to the VMXP2 computer, we can see Policy Commander has stopped and disabled the automatic update service, putting the computer back into a state in accordance with the applied security policy. For most of this video, we've been looking at the enforcement from a computer-centric view. If I click on the Policies tab and select All Policies, we view the enforcement from the perspective of the policies. You may have noticed the small shield icon next to the Disable the Automatic Update service. This indicates that the policy is active. By clicking on the Compliance Summary tab, I can see that the policy has changed from compliant to enforced, and also what computers have moved out of compliance. If I right-click on the policy, I can acknowledge the enforcement at the policy level. This means all computers that have been automatically enforced will become compliant. One thing to note here, if just one computer in a group of computers is non-compliant, the whole policy view will reflect the status of that computer. So if one computer is showing the status of enforced and all the other computers are showing compliant, then the status of that policy will show enforced until that computer is acknowledged back into a compliant state. With the Policies tab still being selected and clicking on Policy Compliance, you get a policy by policy view. This means when you click on a policy, you will get the current status of that individual policy and the status of the computers that that policy has been applied to.